In this episode, we are looking at the day-to-day habits that keep endpoints safer because many security problems do not begin with some advanced attack. They begin with small routine choices that feel harmless in the moment, such as putting off updates, walking away from an unlocked laptop, plugging in an unknown flash drive, or sharing account access to save time. For a beginner, this topic matters because it shows that endpoint security is not only about security software running in the background. It is also about what users and technicians do every day without thinking much about it. A strong endpoint is usually the result of ordinary discipline repeated over time. A weak endpoint is often the result of a few loose habits that slowly pile up until data is exposed, an account is misused, or an unattended device gives someone the exact opportunity they needed. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at Cyber.Me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. An endpoint is any user device that connects to a network or holds useful data, such as a desktop computer, laptop, tablet, or phone. That means endpoint security is really about protecting the devices people use most often, because those are the places where files are opened, accounts are signed in, messages are read, and work is actually done. Beginners sometimes picture security as something that happens at the network edge or inside a server room, but a great deal of risk lives right on the device in front of the user. If that device is poorly maintained or casually handled, it can become the easiest path to stolen information, misused accounts, or unsafe access to other systems. That is why practical habits matter so much. They reduce the number of easy mistakes that turn ordinary devices into security problems. Good endpoint habits are simple on purpose because they need to work in real life, not only in theory. One of the most useful things a technician can learn is that common failures usually come from ordinary behavior, not from dramatic events. A user delays a restart for updates because they are busy, leaves a laptop open on a conference table for just a minute, lends a flash drive without thinking, or uses the same password pattern everywhere because it feels convenient. None of those choices sounds especially serious by itself, which is exactly why they are dangerous. Real security trouble often begins with actions that feel normal, rushed, or minor. When those actions happen day after day, they create openings that do not need much effort to exploit. A beginner should understand that security habits are not separate from daily work. They are part of daily work. The safer path is usually not complicated. It is just the habit of doing small things correctly before they turn into preventable failures involving data, accounts, or devices that were left too easy to misuse. Patching is one of the clearest examples of a simple habit that has a large security effect. Software updates are often treated like interruptions because they take time, they may require restarts, and they sometimes change how something looks or works. Because of that, users may keep postponing them and assume nothing bad will happen as long as the device seems fine. The problem is that many updates are not just about new features. They also fix weaknesses that attackers already know how to use. When a device stays behind on updates, it may still work normally on the surface while quietly becoming an easier target underneath. A technician should help beginners understand that patching is not a side task. It is one of the main ways an endpoint stays current against known problems. A computer that looks healthy but misses important updates may be much weaker than a fully patched computer that had to restart at an inconvenient time. The habit that makes patching effective is not just installing one update once in a while. It is treating updates as part of normal care. Users should not ignore update prompts forever, and technicians should not assume a machine is protected just because the user says it updated at some point recently. Good patching habits mean checking that updates are actually being applied, confirming that restarts happen when needed, and understanding that delays create extra risk. In day-to-day operations, this matters because many users keep working through warnings until the system has fallen far behind. Then when a problem appears, the cleanup becomes much harder than the update would have been. A beginner should also understand that patching includes more than the operating system. Browsers, productivity tools, security tools, and other common applications all matter. Endpoint safety improves when the whole device is kept current, not just one part of it, while everything else quietly ages into weakness. Screen locking is another habit that seems small until you picture what an unattended device really contains. A signed-in computer is not just a machine turned on at a desk. It may already have email open, files available, passwords saved in sessions, cloud tools connected, and internal resources ready to use. If a user walks away and leaves that device unlocked, they are leaving all of that access sitting there for anyone nearby to touch. In an office, school, library, hotel, or shared home space, that can be enough for someone else to read messages, send email as the user, copy files, change settings, or misuse the account without needing to guess a password first. A beginner should understand that screen locking is not about distrust of coworkers or family members. It is about respecting how much power an active session already has. An unattended unlocked device is a preventable risk because it gives away access that should have stayed under the user's control. The best screen locking habits are simple and repeatable. Users should lock the device every time they step away, even if they think they will only be gone for a minute. That minute is long enough for trouble if the wrong person is nearby or if a curious person decides to test what they can do. Automatic lock settings also matter because people forget, get distracted, or believe they will come right back. A technician should make sure endpoints are set to lock after reasonable inactivity, so the system helps protect itself when the user fails to do it manually. This is a good example of user habit and technical support working together. The user should form the habit of locking the screen, and the technician should support that habit with settings that limit the damage when the user slips. A safer endpoint is often built from exactly that kind of pairing, where good behavior is reinforced by sensible system controls rather than being left to memory alone. Unattended devices need more than just screen locks. They also need good physical habits. A laptop left in a car, on a cafe table, in a classroom, or in a conference room is not just a missing object if it disappears. It is a possible data exposure event, an account risk, and a support problem that can spread beyond the device itself. For beginners, this is important because people often think about stolen devices mainly in terms of cost. They worry about replacing the hardware and forget that the bigger issue may be what was on it or what it could still access. A technician should teach users to treat devices like containers of information and access, not just pieces of equipment. Keeping an endpoint physically close, storing it carefully, and avoiding casual abandonment are part of security. When devices are left behind, borrowed without control, or handled carelessly in public spaces, the organization loses more than just convenience. It may lose trust in the data and accounts tied to that device. Account discipline is another core habit because many endpoint failures become worse when people treat accounts casually. Good account discipline means using your own account, protecting your own sign-in, and not sharing access just because it seems faster in the moment. Beginners sometimes see account sharing as helpful, especially in small offices or family environments where everyone knows each other and just wants to get work done. The problem is that shared access weakens accountability and makes misuse harder to trace. It also creates extra exposure because one careless person can affect everyone tied to that shared account. A technician should encourage the simple rule that each person should use the access assigned to them, and only that access. If someone needs more access for a legitimate reason, that should be handled properly, not by passing around credentials. Endpoint security improves when accounts remain personal, controlled, and clearly tied to the right user instead of becoming shortcuts that blur responsibility. Account discipline also includes the habit of not staying signed in everywhere longer than necessary. A user who leaves accounts open on shared systems, saves credentials on untrusted devices, or keeps long-running sessions active without thinking may create risk even if nobody ever guesses the password. Sometimes the problem is not the secret itself. The problem is the access already sitting there waiting to be used. A beginner should understand that logged-in accounts are valuable targets because they skip the hardest part for an attacker. The user has already done the login step. That is why it matters to sign out when appropriate. Avoid using personal or work accounts on devices that are not trusted, and pay attention to where credentials are being stored. A technician does not need to turn this into a lecture about every possible setting. It is enough to explain that access discipline matters because accounts are easier to misuse when the user has already left the door open for the next person. Removable media control is another practical endpoint habit that protects both data and device safety. Flash drives, external drives, memory cards, and other portable storage tools are useful because they make it easy to move files from one place to another. That same convenience is what makes them risky. A removable device can carry malware from one computer to another, or it can carry sensitive files out of the environment with very little effort. Beginners often think of removable media as neutral because it is so familiar, but the security problem is that a small storage device can move data or threats quietly and quickly. A technician should teach users not to plug in unknown devices, not to trust borrowed media automatically, and not to assume that because a flash drive looks ordinary it is safe. Endpoint protection gets stronger when removable media is treated as something that needs control, not just as a harmless office tool that can be used anywhere without concern. There is also a data handling side to removable media that matters just as much as malware prevention. A user may copy work files to a flash drive for convenience, take it home, and then lose it without realizing that sensitive information just left the building with no real protection around it. In another case, someone may plug a personal drive into a work computer and move files without thinking about whether that transfer was allowed or wise. A beginner should see that removable media creates both inbound and outbound risk. The device may bring something harmful in, and it may also take something valuable out. That is why control matters. Technicians may support settings or policies that limit removable storage use, but the user habit still matters too. The safest behavior is to use approved storage methods, know what kind of data should never be copied casually, and avoid treating portable media like an everyday shortcut when safer options already exist. These endpoint habits work best when users and technicians support each other instead of acting like security is the other person's job. Users need simple rules they can remember under pressure, such as apply updates, lock the screen, protect the account, and be careful with portable storage. Technicians need to support those rules with settings, reminders, patch management, access controls, and practical guidance that fits real work. Beginners sometimes imagine the technician as the person who fixes security after the mistake. A better view is that the technician helps shape safer behavior before the mistake happens. That may mean making updates easier to complete, making lock settings sensible, limiting removable media where appropriate, and explaining risks in plain language. A strong endpoint usually reflects that shared effort. Good habits from the user and good support from the technician reinforce each other and reduce the number of common failures that would otherwise keep repeating. As we close, the big lesson is that endpoint security is often built from ordinary habits that protect devices, data, and accounts during normal work. Patching keeps known weaknesses from staying open too long. Screen locking protects active sessions when devices are unattended. Physical care for laptops and other endpoints reduces the chance that lost or stolen hardware turns into a larger security problem. Account discipline keeps access tied to the right person and prevents careless sharing. Removable media control reduces the risk of carrying malware in or data out. None of these habits is complicated, but all of them matter because common failures usually begin with simple lapses in routine. When beginners understand that daily behavior shapes endpoint security just as much as the tools on the device, they are much more prepared to protect real systems in real environments where the biggest risks are often the ones that looked minor right up until they caused trouble.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.